Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Uh, the October 23rd, 2025 Board of Directors meeting is called to order, and I am Sound Transit Director Dave Summers. I want to welcome everybody, both in person and via Zoom. So I hear an echo. Is it possible? No. All right. Well, Sound Transit would like to acknowledge the ancestral land of English nations who still steward this land today. We strive to recognize and uplift all Indigenous people who share this land with. This acknowledgement of our authentic relationships with communities, but rather serves as an additional step in honoring the land the people and cultures nurtured. Our board members joining, please turn your camera on if you're making any comments or questions. Your fellow members know, please turn your off. Do we have understanding what's on?
Chair Summers, we are still looking for the source of this audio issue. If you just give us a moment. Okay, let's go ahead and try again now.
Oh, that sounds better.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. So I'll ask Katie Flores, our board administrator, to call the roll.
Nancy Backus. Claudia Balducci.
Nancy's here.
Thank you. Board Member Backus is present. Claudia Balducci. Angela Burney. Here. Board Member Burney is present. Shannon Braddock. Cassie Franklin. Christine Frizzell. Hunter George. Bruce Harrell.
Here.
Board Member Harrell is present. Ryan Mello.
Here.
Board Member Mello is present. Julie Meredith.
Here.
WashDOT Secretary Meredith is present. Ed Prince.
Here.
Board Member Prince is present. Deshaun Quinn. Kim Roscoe.
Present.
Board Member Roscoe is present. Dan Strauss.
Present.
Board Member Strauss is present. Pete von Reichbauer. Christina Walker.
Here.
Board Member Walker is present. Gurmai Zahalai.
Present.
Board Member Zahalai is present. And Dave Summers.
Here.
And Chair Summers, with your presence, we do have a quorum at this time.
Great. Thank you so much. So on today's agenda, there is one item, which is the annual property tax levy, that requires a supermajority vote for final adoption. So I will call for a roll call vote on that item so that the final vote tally is recorded. A couple of other items. As I've mentioned over the last few months, the board will be holding a second retreat this year to continue our efforts related to the Enterprise Initiative. I strongly urge everyone to please make time to be there. The retreat is scheduled for Thursday, November 13th from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. at the King County Chinook Building, rooms 121 and 123. We will continue our habit of rotating these retreats through the Sound Transit Corridor. I also want to thank the System Expansion Committee for accommodating the retreat. That's their normal time. I also have been joining sub-area meetings to talk about regional and sub-area priorities. Before the retreat, we'd like sub-areas to have a good idea of their goals and priorities. That will really help inform our discussions. And let me also report that board leadership is continuing to work with staff on the Enterprise Initiative. This has been and will continue to be a collaborative process. At the end of the day, we must not only have an affordable plan, but we must also deliver the goals of the ST3 plan while running a safe and resilient transit system. I strongly believe we can do it all. I commend CEO Constantine and the Sound Transit staff for all their work to date, and I know we have more ahead of us, but we are making good progress. Next item, your packet for the meeting today includes the monthly contract report. This report includes contracts and contract modifications executed in September 2025 under the authority delegated to the CEO. I'd also like to mention that a number of board members have met with our friends in the labor community and that they have been engaged in the drafting of potential updates to Sound Transit's TOD policy. I really appreciate all the work that they put into this effort, and I've asked Sound Transit staff to review the language that has been drafted, and I will be referring it to the executive committee for further discussion. This is our normal process. They will develop a recommendation for the full board's consideration. We are targeting to make the draft language public as part of the packet for the November Executive Committee, but no later than December. We will be sure to engage the public and our other TOD partners as part of the process. And so that really is all I had to cover. I'll turn it over to the CEO. Dow?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have had a trend of fewer and fewer unplanned interruptions in service. And this week, we are in day 3 of a new protocol that has been instituted by our Deputy CEO for Service Delivery, Ed Cobean, to shut down sections of our service, small segments, earlier in the evening so that we can have a longer window for regular maintenance. We're going to be doing that on a monthly basis, and then once a quarter, we'll have an even longer or more ample window to do more significant maintenance. This is one of the ways in which we're going to ensure that we have fewer and fewer of these interruptions. We're able to provide the reliable service. Nonetheless, occasionally we do have service interruptions, and last Saturday, the 18th, the 2-line experienced an extended outage between South Bellevue and downtown Bellevue stations after the connection between a train and the overhead power system was damaged near the East Main station. Crews were on site troubleshooting right away and able to implement a bus bridge and then single tracking operations to keep our passengers moving. Thanks to their hard work, we were able to return to regular operations at the start of service on Sunday morning, and a root cause analysis is currently underway. On Federal Way Link, I wanted to share some good news. We're preparing to start simulated service on the Federal Way Link extension. This is a big milestone, the project, and a sign that we're close to opening. At our next meeting, we will share more details about opening day celebrations scheduled for December 6th. Last month, the Eastlink team started systems integration testing on the I-90 floating bridge segment of the project. We are operating trains daily, or rather nightly, from 8 p.m. to 7 a.m., testing all night. To maintain momentum, systems integration testing is running 7 nights a week. During this phase of testing, a single train of up to 4 cars will cross the bridge intermittently. And finally, this past Monday, I had the privilege of delivering a closing keynote address at the Engineering News Record Conference in downtown Seattle. Now, this was the first time this major gathering had been held outside of New York or Los Angeles, which I think speaks to our strength as an increasingly national player in engineering, innovation, and technology. More than 400 attendees heard from a wide variety of agencies, including Washington State Ferries, Cascadia High-Speed Rail, and of course from us here at Sound Transit. The work we're doing was very well received, and it's clear the industry is intensely interested and invested in the work we are all doing. I want to thank Board Member Balducci and WSDOT Secretary and Board Member Meredith for attending as well, and for our DCEO for Capital Mega Projects, Terry Mestez, for helping organize our hosting of this event. That's all I have today, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Board members, any questions? All right. We will move on to public comment. The board does welcome public comment as an important part of the public process. Comments are received and considered by the board in its deliberations. Board members have received written comments submitted before the meeting, and I will now ask Katie to read the names and summaries of those comments.
The board received written public comments from James Pura supporting the proposed ST Express Route 513 adjustments in the second phase of the 2026 service plan to run service both northbound and southbound, noting the benefits for Boeing employees who wish to take public transit to work. From Matthew Mueller asking the board not to vote for the property tax levy in resolution number R 2025-28. From Scott Spears, suggesting that instead of spending funds on fare collection, the board eliminate fares on Link. From Joe Kunstler, submitting 2 comments. First, praising the lighting, cleaning, and wayfinding improvements in Westlake Station during a visit on Sunday. Second, asking that the board not include asking for WashDOT grant eligibility in a future legislative agenda, noting the outsized importance of the grants to smaller transit agencies like Skagit Transit, Pierce Transit, and Everett Transit. From Brian Chow, supporting the idea of deferring the second downtown Seattle tunnel as outlined in ST3 in order to save money, accelerate the delivery of ST3 projects, reducing construction disruption in the CID and downtown core, and to build a unified transit hub around the existing Chinatown/CID station. From Betty Lau, arguing that the transit-oriented development benefits suggested by supporters of the Ballard Lake Extension north and south of CID station alternatives are not in the intention of light rail expansion, and noting that there is currently space available in the CID for housing. And from Paul Swems, supporting the property tax levy outlined in resolution number R 2025-28, and suggesting a series of financial revenue sources, including issuing green bonds, exploring the issuance of 25-year state bonds, revisiting car rental taxation, bolstering more private-public partnerships, accepting gifts and donations, continuing to pursue federal funding, expanding the taxing district, and exploring ways to defer portions of ST3 projects to a future system plan. And Chair, we also have 6 people signed up for in-person public comment and 2 people signed up for virtual public comment.
Great, thank you, Katie. So before we take verbal public comment, I want to review our ground rules for in-person and virtual public comment, and each speaker will have 2 minutes today. All comments must be germane to agenda items. Speakers should not make introductory statements and should avoid derogatory remarks, profanity, or personal attacks not germane to an agenda item, or personal attacks that are germane to an agenda item. Speakers should also refrain from comments related to a political campaign or statements for or against a candidate or ballot measure. Speakers should not engage in conduct that disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of this meeting, including conduct that is not germane to the board's agenda or work. This is the only warning speakers will receive. If these rules are not followed, I will ask for the microphone to be turned off, and we all appreciate your adherence to these rules. So we'll now take comment from people here in the Ruth Fisher boardroom based on the order in which they are signed up to speak. Katie?
We'll pull up the first 3 presenters, Betty Lau, Brian Chow, and Rita to provide public comment. And once you're ready, please press the button to unmute your microphone.
Hello, I'm Betty Lau from the Zhonghua Benevolent Association and co-founder of Transit Equity for All. The only argument for north and south of CID stations is, quote, "We want the land for housing," unquote. According to a 2023 study by Historic South Downtown, there is 200,000 square feet of space available for housing in the existing CID buildings. Land will be there regardless of whether light rail is built or not. And most importantly, the need and purpose of light rail is not housing, but to expand mobility for the corridor and the region's residents, which include transit-dependent residents, low-income people, and communities of color who need long-term regional mobility and multimodal connectivity as called for in the Washington State Growth Management Act, which is from the Sound Transit 2022 DEIS. Community member Mark Langley said it best. It is indefensible to put forth a plan that bypasses the same communities that have been historically marginalized and underserved. It reduces the potential for benefiting from residential development and tourism and further sidelines those who most need transportation access. It is a racist, classicist plan. It is modern day redlining, unquote. Rethink Link, defer the second tunnel, reduce the deficit, complete the spine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Brian Chow, co-founder of Transit Equity for All. Thank you, Vice Chair Claudia Balducci and Deputy CEO Terry Mestis for your leadership, for looking at the need for a second downtown tunnel. Your work confirms that deferring the second tunnel is the smartest, most responsible way to keep the ST3 on track and affordable. This isn't about delay, it's about focus. By using the existing tunnel, we can create a connected super hub right at the International District Chinatown station, which Sound Transit needs to correct this wrong backward named station, the only place where the Link, East Link, Sounder, Amtrak, Metro, and the streetcar all come together. Deferring the second tunnel protects taxpayers' dollars and protects the CID and the region. It spares the community from years of disruption and preserves one of Seattle's most historic neighborhoods. By improving the existing station, Sound Transit can deliver the same convenient transfers the 4th Avenue station promised without tearing up the CID to do it. This is how we finish the spine from Tacoma to Everett and make transit work for everyone. This is not a retreat, it's a course correction, one that turns crisis into opportunity and puts Sound Transit back on track to deliver a world-class regional system. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello. Ooh. Hello, my name is Rata. Y'all know me. I'm part of GREAT. That's Growth, Resource, Equity, and Accessible Transit for All. I think this is the first time I've sat up here with Betty and Brian giving comment, and it made complete sense. I mean, we also don't want any disruption in the neighborhood. GREAT, like T, don't want any disruption in the neighborhood. We don't want displacement. We don't want gentrification in our high-risk neighborhood. When this whole process started 6 years ago, and when y'all brought it to community 3.5 years ago, y'all said that it wasn't feasible to build, to have a no build, to, in other words, to use the tunnel that we currently have. I just want to make sure that that's still on. I still want to make sure that the study is reliable so that it can be trusted that that no build option is okay. We talked with the aunties. If the no build option is feasible, let's do it. However, if it's not feasible, do not build on Fifth. We, the supermajority, T and us, don't want y'all building on Fifth. It will disrupt the neighborhood. It will be disastrous for the neighborhood. GREAT wants the north-south option because it allows for ETOD, what they were saying. We need more housing. Seattle and the greater Pacific Northwest region needs more housing in the future, and that will allow for more housing. And it'll also not displace the people that are already here. So north and south preferred alternative, please stick with that plan if the no build option is a no-go. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next three speakers are Harper Nally, Colleen Horn, and Zella Urquhart. Please come forward. And Harper Nally, please go ahead.
Hi, I'm here to speak about the Sound Transit Express restructure. I want to start by saying, commending the proposal to add 24-hour service to the system. This will be a very large step forward for regional connectivity. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for much of the rest of the proposal. Sound Transit has poured billions into expanding commuter and light rail. This has given it the opportunity to rethink the STX system and imagine new corridors that can be served. Pierce County and South King service could leverage the I-5 spine or an I-5 bus spine, and Sounder to increase service centered around Tacoma. Resources spent on the 545 could be redistributed to the 542 to give North Seattle residents substantially better connections to Redmond, and the 566 could be made all day to give South King residents improved access to East King. However, these decisions have not been made. I understand that you hear from current riders that they fear having to transfer or having marginally longer trips. However, this must be balanced with the benefits gained by offering new people access to better transit. Otherwise, we are not fully benefiting from the billions spent on Link and Sounder, and Sound Transit is falling short of its goals to increase regional connectivity and improve transportation equity.
Thank you.
Next is Colleen Horn.
Good afternoon. I'm Colleen, co-owner of a brewery in East Ballard, as well as a co-owner of industrial property in East Ballard and a member of Ballard Brood. I'm commenting on system expansion to Ballard. I'm here to say that at a time when local businesses are wearing it from uncertainties caused by the Trump administration, Sound Transit has the opportunity to create certainty, support employees, makers, and customers, and deliver light rail on time to 15th and Market by 2039. This is the support that East Ballard Industrial, a truly unique business community, needs. Certainty allows industrial businesses to plan for the future, make investments, and hire for in-person local jobs. Please take this opportunity to support our customers, employees, and small businesses in a meaningful way through connectivity and regional transit. The many, many, many future Ballard riders, including myself, thank you.
Thank you.
Nine days ago, I replied to an email from Sound Transit. I received an automated response saying someone would reply in 3 to 5 business days. It's been 9 days and I haven't received answers to my questions. Here is a portion of the unanswered email. Maybe someone can respond to my concerns. How long do you think that trains stay at stations? How long do you think it takes to move to another car? I've tried moving to escape the sounds. I am always left waiting for the next train. It's ridiculous to pretend that moving to a different car would help. I've started logging it. Over 50% of the train cars that I've gotten onto have contained at least one person playing audio without headphones. With those odds, why bother moving? What, besides the aforementioned 10-minute delay, are you trying to pretend that I would achieve? The security operations manager for Sound Transit emailed me regarding a similar situation that the officer should have asked the customer to put on headphones or turn the music off. Are you saying he lied to me? Why do you think he did that? When I text the number for reporting incidents about people playing audio without headphones, they consistently tell me that they have informed security. Is the person operating the incident report line lying to me? Why do you think that they're doing that? I don't understand why you're telling me security is not authorized to enforce rules, and then adding that I should try to enforce the rules myself. Surely I have less authorization than they do. Are you prepared to defend your suggestion that I wait in if I get assaulted as a result of following it? Are you prepared to defend it if as a result I have to deploy pepper spray on a crowded train to defend myself? This is the situation I'm trying to avoid when I contact security. I can give up on this if you really think I should, but can you understand why it is preferable for the person asking to be a security officer with perceived authority rather than a traumatized autistic woman? I look forward to hearing a response.
Thank you.
And Chair Summers, that's everyone who signed up for in-person comment at today's meeting.
Do we have any? Okay, now to turn to comment via Zoom, our virtual meeting platform. I'll ask that when your name is called, please raise your hand. And Katie, do we have anybody?
We have 2 people signed up for virtual public comment.
So please raise your hand using the raise hand function in Zoom. You will receive a message allowing you to unmute yourself when your name is called. You will need to unmute yourself when you realize or receive this message to be able to comment. So if you're joining the meeting by telephone, press *9 on your phone so you can be identified, and you will be instructed how to unmute yourself in order to give your comment. Katie.
The first person who signed up to speak virtually is Wes Mills. Please accept the notice to unmute your microphone. Please go ahead.
Hello, good afternoon, members of the Sound Transit Board. I'm commenting today on the 2026 draft service plan for Sound Transit Express. As a member of the Transit Riders Union and someone who lives in Seattle without a car and is thus reliant on transit for virtually all of my transportation needs and wants, I'm deeply invested in Sound Transit getting these major changes right. There's a lot to like about this plan. Foremost for me is the addition of regional OWL service for the first time and adding Sunday service to routes that currently lack it. But some parts of the draft give me pause. For example, the comment that OWL service might not happen is troubling. And further, the survey doesn't account for comments related to routes that are not changing, which leads to bias towards only hearing from people who have an opinion about the routes that do change, leaving out comments about the unchanged elements. And lastly, I question why the original plan to remove the 545 and reinvest service hours in the 542 was taken out from what was discussed in 2023. The 545 will be an entirely duplicated route once the full two-line opens. And there's still more that Sound Transit could do, especially with routes on the south end, to make a more streamlined experience, both connecting to light rail and making high-capacity corridors all on their own. Fear of loss around change is definitely a big deal to current riders, but it's not the only consideration. New connections and efficient service hour use called for bold steps as we make the most of our major investment in light rail. And I would urge that Sound Transit please work with advocates to make this plan as good as it can be. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And the next person who signed up for public comment virtually is Patrick W. And please accept the notice to unmute. Please go ahead.
First of all, Board Member Harrell, please stop having side conversations during public comment. I'm here to speak about the proposed bus changes in the 2026 service plan. It's a complete waste of our limited resources to continue running bus routes that duplicate Link and Sounder into downtown Seattle, particularly the 510, 545, and disjointed network of peak-only routes from the South Sound. Get rid of them, we don't need them. But importantly, what can we gain from removing these routes? Improving our spine routes 512, 574 to run every 10 minutes, matching Link service for easier transfers. Better connectivity between other destinations such as the 405 corridor, future stride lines, all of North Seattle to Redmond, Auburn to Renton and the east side, service on new corridors like Puyallup to Tacoma, running buses all day to DuPont and Bonnie Lake, which currently have very limited peak-only service. I can understand keeping something from Pierce County into Seattle because of how slow the Rainier Valley segment is, but the current network is not a good way to do that. Right now, we are focusing most of our South Sound resources at rush hour when traffic is so bad that it's not faster than Link, not to mention Sounder. With these expansions, we can serve lots of different trip types, serving people who have been paying into this system this whole time but can't ride it because the network doesn't align to their needs. Instead of giving everything to a narrow and shrinking demographic of downtown office commuters who will have better options thanks to the billions of dollars we've invested in building trains that serve those trips well. Sound Transit is supposed to serve everyone. We need to start acting like it. Inferring a few things from yesterday's open house, the service planning team wanted to make these changes until you told them not to. So I asked the board, stop tying your planners' hands with politically motivated decisions. You hired them to give you a better network, let them do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Summers, that is everyone who signed up for today's public comment.
Great, thank you. So I'll close public comment and we will move on to the consent agenda. Katie, could you read the consent agenda?
The consent agenda includes the voucher certification for September 2025, the minutes of the September 25th, 2025 Board of Directors meeting, and motion number M 2025-49, authorizing the CEO to execute an amendment to extend the existing commuter rail rolling stock maintenance agreement with the National Railroad Passenger Corporation for the continued maintenance of Sounder locomotives and cars, including the cost of fuel, in an amount not to exceed $29,253,120, including 5% contingency, for new total authorized agreement amount not to exceed $416,182,700.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Hello, seconded by Bernie. Are there any items on the consent agenda the board members would like to remove and consider separately? All right, all those in favor of the consent agenda indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, no? Any abstentions? All right, the consent agenda is adopted. So we'll turn to the other business items on our agenda. First is resolution number R 2025-28, and I'll ask Ryan Fisher, our Finance Executive Director, to begin the staff presentation on the 2026 property tax levy and also to introduce additional presenters.
Thank you, Chair Summers and other members of the board. Joining me today is Stephanie Ball, Director of Financial Planning and Analysis. Next slide, please. So today we're here to request the approval of Resolution R 2025-28, which authorizes a statutory 1% property tax levy increase, as well as certify our total property tax levy amount. This is not a new tax, rather part of our annual property tax levy process for board approval prior to submitting to the assessor's office. Next slide, please.
Good afternoon, board members. In the state of Washington, as part of the budget process, each local taxing jurisdiction must establish the amount of property tax revenue needed to fund the budget every year, and this amount is referred to as the levy. Sound Transit's proposed property tax levy for 2026 is $183 million. This number was developed by starting with the 2025 property tax levy of $176.2 million. It's then increased by 1% or $1.8 million, which is the statutory increase, as well as $5 million to account for projected revenue from new construction and improvements to property and utility value. In total, this is 3.8% higher than the 2025 levy. This is based on our preliminary 2025 assessed value data, and the adopted budget will reflect the actual certified levy and assessed value data. Next slide, please. So this slide displays the levy rate, which is the annual levy divided by the assessed value of the Sound Transit District. The levy rate limit, which was established in ST3, is 25 cents per $1,000 of assessed value, as shown in the pink line. Annually, we have been subject to the statutory requirement that the levy can only increase 1%, as mentioned earlier. In general, assessed value in the Sound Transit District rises faster than 1%, resulting in a decreased levy rate. So in 2026, it's projected to decline slightly to 16 cents per $1,000 of assessed value. To put this into context, the average King County homeowner will see around a $1.50 increase in their Sound Transit property tax bill, assuming their property has increased 3% year over year. Next slide, please. So for some more context, this slide displays the share that different jurisdictions make up of a property tax bill for a representative property in the city of Seattle. Sound Transit makes up 1.8% of this bill. The actual percentages and categories can change depending on where a specific residence is located, but the Sound Transit levy rate wouldn't change based on where an individual lives in the region. Now I'll turn it back over to Ryan.
Thank you, Stephanie. Next slide, please. So before we close today, just a few thoughts to describe the property tax levy in relation to the finance plan. The voter-approved long-term financial plan does assume that the levy would be increased 1% every year. As a result, failure to approve this 1% increase would result in a reduction of forecasted revenue through 2046. It is important to note that annual inflation, as Stephanie mentioned earlier, has been higher than the 1% that were allowed under the maximum levy increase. So next slide, please. That concludes our presentation. We're happy to answer any questions board members may have.
Thank you. Any questions from board members? All right. Katie, could you read the action into the record?
Resolution number R 2025-28 is a resolution of the Board of the Central Puget Sound Regional Transit Authority establishing the amount of property taxes to be levied for the year 2026 based on the assessed value of property within the Sound Transit District.
Thank you. And I'd like to ask our Finance and Audit Committee Chair, Nancy Backus, to summarize the public hearing on the action and offer a motion to approve Resolution R 2025-28.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On October 9th, I presided over a public hearing pertaining to both the 2026 budget and property tax levy, during which no comments were received from the public on either topic. And I would move to approve R 2025-28.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, this is Bernie.
Second by Bernie. Any discussion on the motion? And we'll note that this does require 12 affirmative votes. Any discussion? All right, call the roll, please.
Nancy Backus.
Aye.
Board Member Backus votes aye. Claudia Balducci. Angela Burney.
Aye.
Board Member Burney votes aye. Shannon Braddock.
Aye.
Board Member Braddock votes aye. Cassie Franklin. Christine Frizzell.
Aye.
Board Member Frizzell votes aye. Hunter George. Bruce Harrell.
Aye.
Board Member Harrell votes aye. Ryan Mello.
Aye.
Board Member Mello votes aye. Julie Meredith.
Aye.
Board Member Meredith votes aye. Ed Prince. I see Board Member Prince on the line, but we did not.
Aye.
Thank you. Board Member Prince votes aye. Deshaun Quinn.
Aye. Aye.
Board Member Quinn votes aye. Kim Roscoe.
Aye.
Board Member Roscoe votes aye. Dan Strauss.
Aye.
Board Member Strauss votes aye. Pete Von Reichbauer.
Aye.
Board Member Von Reichbauer votes aye. Christina Walker.
Aye.
Board Member Walker votes aye. Gurmai Zahalai.
Aye.
Board Member Zahalai votes aye. And Dave Summers.
Aye.
And Chair Summers, with your vote, that's 15 affirmative votes.
Thank you. The motion passes. All right, we will move on to motion M 2025-50, and I'll ask Manan Nagar, Capital Delivery Executive Director, to introduce additional presenters and begin the staff presentation on 3 actions for the STRIDE BRT program.
Thank you and good afternoon, Chair Summers and the other members of the board. My name is Manan Garg. I'm the Executive Director overseeing the STRIDE program for the Capital Delivery Department. With me today is Rick Kepka. On my right-hand side, he's our Executive Project Director for the STRIDE program and Director of Strategic Projects, Paul Cornish. Next slide, please. We are here today seeking your approval to advance key milestones for our STRIDE BRT program and continuing our strong partnership with WashDOT, starting with motion M 2025-50, Renton Transit Center. This approves the construction contract for this key S1 STRIDE hub, improving connectivity and community access. M 2025-51, Tukwila Station Improvements, authorizes a funding agreement with WashDOT for design, build, delivery of the I-405 STRIDE Tukwila Station. And then lastly, M 25-52, WashDOT Master Agreement establishes a unified framework for all STRIDE BRT improvements on the state highway right-of-way, clarifying roles and streamlining delivery. Next slide, please. For context, the board baselined the STRIDE program in July of 2023 under the resolutions R 2023-17, 18, and 19, respectively. The program includes 4 coordinated projects: the I-405 South and North corridors, the SR 522 line, and the new bus operations and maintenance facility. The OMF opens first to support the fleet, followed by S1 and S3 in 2028 and S2 in 2029, completing the first region-wide BRT network. Next slide, please. The SIDE program includes 12 projects in total. We now have 6 projects in active construction, 4 projects in procurement for construction services, 2 projects in design. Today's items are highlighted in green on this slide. Next slide, please. And with this, I will hand off the presentation to EPD Rick Kepka.
All right. Good afternoon, Chair Summers and members of the board. Our first motion will be to request authorization for the execution of a construction contract for the Renton Transit Center. You may recall last month before the System Expansion Committee and the full board, the addition to the budget of the funding agreement with King County Metro for Renton. So this construction contract before you today is the next step in the process to get this project underway. As you can see here, this slide summarizes our request. I will note that the project is fully funded within the baselined I-405 BRT project, and it's also included in the agency's long-range financial plan. Next slide, please. Some brief highlights on the scope for this important project in Renton. It will serve as one of our 5 stops for Stride along the S1 service line. The transit center will include a total of 8 bus bays. 6 of those will be for King County Metro and 2 will be for Stride. There's going to be a 158 stall interim surface parking lot, which you can see in the rendering here. That's in addition to a 350 plus stall parking lot for the South Renton Park and Ride that currently exists directly adjacent to the site. The scope also includes operations facilities, including a security office, operator restrooms, and then lastly, I'll mention there's a 13 stall bus layover loop for King County Metro buses. I also want to highlight this does not include a parking garage. The parking garage was deferred back in 2021 and is part of a broader discussion for the future plan for our parking garages. Next slide. Okay, this slide provides additional information on the budget and schedule for the project. We have $70 million allocated for the budget. We received 4 really competitive bids for this contract, all of which were well below the engineer's estimate and within the budget. The total authorized not to exceed amount we are requesting is $55.4 million, and that includes a 15% allocated contingency. For schedule, we are on track to open S1 in 2028. It's important to note that the Renton Transit Center is currently on the critical path for this S1 service line, so it is critical for us to get this project underway. Next slide. And in summary, we seek your authorization to enter into a construction contract with Shimmick Construction for the Renton Transit Center for a total authorized not to exceed amount of $55.4 million. Next slide, I'm going to hand it over to Paul Cornish to cover the next motion.
Thank you. So I am Paul Cornish, the Strategic Projects Director of the BRT program, and I'm very pleased to be here today to present for your consideration the 4th of 4 agreements with WashDOT to deliver the Tukwila International Boulevard inline bus rapid transit station and other speed and reliability improvements. This will bring up to 7 BRT stations and improvements delivered by WashDOT. The Tukwila International Boulevard station is a key element for the Stride S1 line, which runs between Burien and Bellevue. So I want to start a little bit with a little background. In January of 24, we informed the board that this project could be on hold indefinitely due to aging infrastructure under State Route 518, specifically the culvert for Gilliam Creek. And we would serve the light rail station via surface streets, which are shown on the yellow lines and arrows on the map, and the orange lines. The orange line would be the eastbound bus routing. The yellow lines are the westbound bus routing. Well, in October 24, WashDOT completed an emergency repair of the culvert, and we restarted project development. Due to the delay in restarting the project, the BRT buses will serve Tibbs via surface streets, as shown here, for 15 months plus or minus. But we are no longer looking at using these surface streets indefinitely. Once completed, the inline BRT station will save the S1 Stride buses 7 to 8 minutes in travel time, which is a very significant savings. Next slide, please. So on this rendering on the right is the existing International Boulevard light rail station. We will have a pedestrian bridge connecting into the mezzanine, directly into that station on the mezzanine level. And the pedestrian bridge will go out to the center of 518, where we will be building 2 BRT platforms, bus-only lanes, and then vertical circulation in the form of elevators and stairs to get up and from the pedestrian bridges. On the right is the second pedestrian bridge spanning State Route 518, ultimately connecting to International Boulevard via a sidewalk and connecting to neighborhoods to the south. In the background of this picture, you see a WashDOT Fish passable crossing. This is a project that WashDOT is paying 100% for. We have no funds in this, but it's to rebuild a culvert under State Route 518 because these projects are right next to each other, basically on top of each other at that point. We want to have these done as one contract under one contractor to minimize the impacts to the traveling public, freight, and existing transit service. Next slide, please. So this project, the request of $179 million is within the approved project budget. The costs include the design build contract itself, sales tax, construction engineering, indirect costs. This also includes a 4% contingency that is managed by WashDOT. And we have some controls in the agreement as to when we advise, when we discuss, when we concur with how they spend that 4%. But that is inside this agreement, which makes us a little more nimble in the design build process. And then this request also involves a Sound Transit contingency of 6%, bringing the total contingency to 10%. These costs and contingency allocations are consistent with our other existing WashDOT agreements. Next slide, please. So a quick summary. If the board were to authorize this today, Sound Transit and WashDOT would move forward with advertising for the design and construction of the Tuckwell International Boulevard Inline Station. The $168.7 million includes everything we need to get this project completed, and then we still maintain our 6% contingency if needed. And with that, I would finish my presentation and take any questions if you had them.
Any questions? Okay. We're going to go on to 52, or does that come up later?
Next slide, yeah. All right. This is our third motion, and we are seeking authorization to enter into an agreement with WashDOT for the construction of Stride BRT improvements that will be done by Sound Transit within state highway right-of-way, and that's both along SR 522 and the I-405 corridors. You can go to the next slide, please. So just a very brief overview of this agreement. First, looking at the table on the right that shows our 12 Stride BRT projects. I've highlighted in green here the 7 projects that this particular agreement encompasses. And then on the left-hand side, I'll summarize this master agreement authorizes Sound Transit and its contractors to enter state right-of-way to perform various BRT improvements, including BRT station construction, construction of B8 BAT lanes, bus business access and transit lanes, as well as Q bypass lanes, utility relocations, and retaining wall construction. The agreement defines roles and responsibilities between Sound Transit and WashDOT, as well as a process for WashDOT to inspect and ultimately accept the work. And lastly, the agreement will authorize reimbursement of WashDOT staff time in support of this work through the issuance of task orders. The total cost under this agreement is anticipated to be less than $3 million, and funding for these task orders will come from existing board-approved BRT project budgets. Next slide. And to summarize here, we are requesting authorization for approval of this master agreement with WashDOT, and you can go to the next slide. And these are the 3 items. Happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Any questions on this or any of the 3 items we've had a presentation on? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Can you just give a status update on the procurement process through Lake Forest Park?
Sure. So Lake Forest Park is the last of 3 construction contracts that we are planning to do along the SR 522 corridor. We are currently in the pre-procurement phase for that particular contract. I say in the next several months, we will be advertising a construction contract, and we are planning to use what's called GCCM as opposed to a low bid. So we're looking to hire a contractor partially based on qualifications, bring that contractor on board, do some early planning with that contractor before we enter into a full construction contract with them. So that's the current status of that particular contract.
Thank you.
Board Member Meredith.
I just want to note the really good work our staff did to create these agreements and collaborate together so that execution can be done, delivering both party scopes with the least amount of impact to the traveling public and at the best value we can get. So just want to thank your team for the work with us to deliver that scope.
Thank you, Board Member Meredith.
Thank you. Any other questions before I get these teed up? All right. Katie, would you read the first action into the record?
The first action is motion number M 2025-50, a motion of the Board of the Central Puget Sound Regional Transit Authority authorizing the Chief Executive Officer to execute a contract with Shimmick Construction Company, Inc. for construction services for the Stride Renton Transit Center, a component of the I-405 Stride Bus Rapid Transit Project, in the amount of $48,194,800 with a 15% contingency of $7,229,220 for a total authorized contract amount not to exceed $55,424,020 plus applicable taxes.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve motion M 2025-50?
So moved.
Bernie,
Second.
Mello? All right. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Any abstentions? All right, motion carries. Now, motion M 2025-51. Katie?
Motion number M 2025-51 is a motion of the Board of the Central Puget Sound Regional Transit Authority authorizing the Chief Executive Officer to execute a construction agreement with the Washington State Department of Transportation for the design, build, delivery of the Tukwila International Boulevard Bus Rapid Transit Project as part of the I-405 Bus Rapid Transit Project in the amount of $168,740,000 with a 6% contingency of $10,124,400 for a total authorized agreement amount not to exceed $178,864,400.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve M 2025-51?
So moved.
Second.
Bernie Mello. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Any abstentions? All right, motion carries. And finally, motion M 2025-52.
Motion number M 2025-52 is a motion of the Board of the Central Puget Sound Regional Transit Authority authorizing the Chief Executive Officer to execute a master agreement with the Washington State Department of Transportation for the construction of Stride Bus Rapid Transit improvements by Sound Transit on state highway right-of-way and authorizes issuance of task orders under master agreement for specific projects.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve M 2025-52?
So moved.
Second.
Bernie Mello. Thank you. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, no. Any abstentions? All right, that motion carries. Thank you so much. CEO Constantine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a comment on the last three items. First of all, thank you to our very able Sound Transit staff. I wanted in particular to thank the Washington State Department of Transportation and Secretary Meredith for your strong partnership in helping us through these very complex discussions and getting to the adoption of these agreements today. And I know that Secretary and Board Member Meredith wants to join me in thanking Assistant Secretary at WashDOT, Ron Pate, who has been doing day-to-day work with our leadership here at the agency to make sure that we were able to weave our way through all of these complexities. Ron has been a great asset, and we're going to keep him on the job just as long as we possibly can, helping us to continue to make progress together. Thank you, Board Member Meredith, and thank you, Ron.
Thank you. Good work. All right. We are going to move on to reports to the board. First is on the proposed 2026 budget and 2026 transit improvement plan. I'll ask Ryan Fisher, Finance Executive Director, to begin the presentation, and he will introduce additional presenters.
Thank you, Chair Summers and other members of the board. Joining me today is Jenny Stevens, Director of Financial Planning and Analysis and Budget, and Stephanie Ball, also Director of Financial Planning and Analysis and Budget. Next slide, please. There is no action before you here today. We are giving you a review of the entirety of the proposed 26 budget and transit improvement plan, which includes both revenues, funding sources, and expenditures. And we'll close with thoughts on the budget, risks, the timeline, and next steps, please. Next slide, please. So this is a high-level timeline. We're here at the October board meeting. Previously, we had our public hearing for both the budget and property tax. We've reviewed the proposed budget and transit improvement plan with the Finance and Audit Committee earlier in October. In November, we will go to each individual committee and have individual reviews on portions of the budget within their purview. We would request that those committees forward on their portions of the budget to the Finance and Audit Committee, who would recommend the entirety of the budget onto the board for final approval later in November. Next slide, please. This is a reminder of how the various pieces of our projections and budget fit together. The budget is for a single year. In this case, it's 2026, while the transit improvement plan is the consolidation of all of the authorized allocations for all of the agency's active projects, which are based upon previously approved board actions and direction. The budget and TIP are adopted by the board, and then those are incorporated into our long-range financial plan. While the budget and TIP are adopted, the long-range financial plan is not. Rather, it is a forecast of the spending beyond just the TIP period out through 2046. The proposed budget and transit improvement plan you see here today and through the committees is affordable in our long-range financial plan and a representation of earlier board-approved actions and direction. So as part of this budget, we are not proposing to move forward beyond already approved milestones for system expansion projects. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Before we get into some of the numbers, just a few high-level key takeaways for the proposed budget that you will see before you today. Overall, our revenues are up slightly, about 3% over 2025. With the Federal Way Link extension opening in late 25 and the Cross Link extension opening along with Pinehurst Station in 26, our total service hours are projected to increase substantially over 25 forecast. The majority of construction spending you will see once those link extensions are open next year will be the STRIDE program, and link spending will shift to ST3 projects in planning. We're going to show you where additional dollars have been included across both our operational and capital budgets in response to improving both our service reliability and resiliency ahead of the upcoming World Cup. Next slide, please. So first, we'll talk about revenues and funding sources. Next slide, please. This slide covers the 26 proposed revenue and financing sources budget. There's an overall slight decline in the budget over 25 forecasts, but that's mainly because of the TIFIA loan draws coming down from our high here in 2025. Without including those TIFIA draws, the 26 sources budget increases over the 25 forecast by around 4%. Tax revenues are the largest revenue source. The preliminary forecast expects our budget to be about 3.5% over 25 forecasts, reflects moderate growth in the regional economy and the passing of new legislation, which should increase the agency's sales tax base, which includes new services subject to sales tax. Our fare revenues assume higher ridership with a full year of Federal Way Link extension and a partial year of Cross Lake connection extension. Grants and local state contributions revenue budget of $232 million includes CIG funding for both Linwood Link and Federal Way Link extensions. Our investment income is budgeted to be a slight decrease from the 25 forecast. The main reason there is we expect lower market interest rates throughout 2026. Our TIFIA and RIF proceeds reflect the anticipated drawdown for the 130th and Pinehurst TIFIA loan, as well as our Sounder Access RIF funding. This will be the remainder of our outstanding TIFIA and RIF loans. Next slide, please. Real quick, key takeaways here. This displays trends in our annual revenues over the last few years. You can see the improvement in tax revenues after a small drop off in 2024. You can also see there the grant revenues have decreased from a peak in 23 as Linwood Link and Federal Way Link FFGAs have drawn down the majority of their funds. And lastly, you can see there I mentioned the TIFIA loans. We're planning on closing the remaining amount of those TIFIA loans as we continue our cash optimization ahead of the major ST3 projects. Next slide, please. Now we'll cover expenditures. Next slide, please. So the total uses for the 26 budget are projected to be around $3.5 billion. The differential between the sources and uses budget is expected to be bridged by a portion of our cash balance projected at year-end 2025. We'll cover most of these later on in the presentation, but just a couple to cover here, sorry. The debt service budget is expected to decrease in 2026 as we've drawn down the remainder of our variable rate bond here in 2025 of $75 million. The other section includes budgets for fair and regional planning, general and administrative costs, tax collection and fees, amortization and interest expense for leases, and subscription-based information technology agreements, and non-operating expenses. This is slightly higher than 25 forecast, primarily driven by higher lease costs as the agency continues return to office, along with tax collection and fees, which are driven by our higher sales tax offset fee and sales tax collections. Lastly, the contingency is tagged at 3.5% of our modal budget. This is consistent with 2025's budget approach. Next slide, please. Before I pass it off to my colleague, Jenny Stevens, to go in more details on the operating budget, just highlighted a few key themes here as we go through the budget today. This is kind of like a pie chart, but it's in box form, and it shows relative amounts of additional investments we're including in this year's budget. These investments will be covered later, but of the $194 million, about $65 million is included in our operating budget, and around $129 million is included in our capital budgets. The future development investments there, you'll note, are mainly seed funding to scope additional continuous improvement opportunities through our innovation and technology program. Items in here include a Fairgate pilot study, technology solution assessment for a unified control center, and updates to provide accessible routing through stations. Next slide, please. And now I'll pass it off to Jenny Stevens to go in more details on our operating budget.
Thanks, Ryan. This slide visually depicts how the 2026 operating budget will be utilized. As you can see, most of our budget is for baseline operations and for new extensions. Off to the right, we've highlighted additional investments above and beyond baseline to run services. These include $31 million to improve operational response, such as more frequent services on the one line, adding King County rail staff to support power and electrical systems, and for the Redefine Clean program. $19 million for security to hire additional King County Sheriff officers and to bring the Security Operations Center in-house. And $13 million has been set aside to support World Cup by adding bus services, security and custodial services, and restroom units, just to name a few examples. Next slide, please. Here are the revenue hours by mode since 2023. Starting from the top line, Lynx hours have grown by 146%, driven by the East Link Starter Line and Linwood Link openings in 2024, Downtown Redmond and Federal Way this year, and Cross Lake Connection next year. ST Express has remained relatively flat, and Sounder has seen a 15% increase driven by the 2 northbound trips that were added in 2024. For the T-Line, it's difficult to tell here on this slide because of the scale, but it has nearly doubled since the Hilltop-Tacoma Link opening in 2023. Next slide, please. This slide shows how the modal expenses discussed in the earlier slide are broken down by mode. On the right side of the slide, each mode's costs are broken down into the 4 major cost categories used in the National Transit Database. Vehicle operations includes the cost of operators to run vehicles, security and safety, and traction power or fuel for ST Express and Sounder. General and administrative include indirect costs to provide administrative support as well as insurance expenses. Facilities maintenance to maintain our facilities and track in a state of good repair, including vertical transportation and materials and supplies. Vehicle maintenance to maintain our vehicles in a state of good repair, including spare parts. For Link, the 2026 budget includes additional King County rail staff to support 4-minute headways on the one line, power and electrical system support, and custodial services. In addition, there is budget set aside for World Cup for station deep cleanings, additional security, restroom units, and wayfinding. For ST Express, in addition to funding baseline operations, $5 million is budgeted to provide additional bus services during the World Cup. For ST Express, Sounder, and T-Line, the budget includes increased spending in facilities maintenance to cover enhanced cleaning contracts. And across all modes, the 2026 operating budget allocates nearly $100 million towards safety and security to provide a more safe, secure, and clean system. And now I'll pass it over to Stephanie to talk about the service delivery.
Thank you, Jenny. Next slide, please. So next, we're going to speak to project budgets. Projects have multi-year budgets and are included in our Transit Improvement Plan, or TIP. And we have two major categories: system expansion and service delivery projects. First, I'm going to speak to service delivery projects, which include state of good repair and other projects that benefit the delivery of our service. Before we dive into the specifics, I want to bring up an important difference in this year's TIP. This year, we have worked to restructure all of our service delivery projects in the TIP to asset-based programs, which roll up to portfolios. This aligns our service delivery project program budgets with our new asset management structure to ensure clear ownership of work and many other benefits. In green, this shows the outline of our former budget and TIP for service delivery projects, and in blue, this displays the updated portfolios, which align with the agency asset management structure. Underneath the portfolios, there are 31 asset-based programs. This presentation and the board approval of service delivery projects will be in the form of asset-based programs. Next slide, please. So this slide highlights 2026 service delivery project spending by the 7 portfolios mentioned earlier and indirect costs associated with service delivery projects. Total spending in 2026 is $282 million, which is 8% of the total 2026 budget. Major priorities within these projects, highlighted earlier in the presentation on the additional investment slide, include internal continuous improvement IT projects, state of good repair work, safety projects, critical resiliency projects, and passenger-facing improvements needed for the World Cup. The largest project within the IT portfolio includes the Enterprise Resource Planning and Enterprise Asset Management System Redesign project, which will procure their solution platforms. Next, within the facilities portfolio, the largest program is the Downtown Seattle Transit Tunnel Modernization Program, where critical projects include the cable replacement and lighting upgrade. Next, in the infrastructure portfolio, the Traction Power Program is the largest, the bulk of which is made up of the one-line Traction Power Electrification Modernization Project, which will modernize the central traction power substations to make current and future ties more compatible, reliable, and resilient. And then lastly, within the Rolling Stock Program, priorities in 2026 include light rail vehicle projects, such as the Systems Upgrade Project, Train Simulator for Training Operators, and the Link Overhaul Project. Additionally, the bus program will refurbish buses for extra capacity for bus bridges, which will be needed for the World Cup. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to dive into system expansion projects. This chart highlights the 2026 system expansion budget. These projects are budgeted to spend $1.9 billion in 2026 and make up 55% of agency uses. Link system expansion projects represent 47%, or $912 million of total system expansion expenditures. The largest Link project budgets are for those in planning and include the following priorities: Ballard Link for preliminary engineering, including publication of the final environmental impact statement, OMF South for beginning final design of the facility, West Seattle will advance design and identify cost savings opportunities. Additionally, Everett Link will complete Phase 2 preliminary engineering, and Tacoma Dome Link will advance to preliminary engineering Phase 3 and progress design from 10 to 30% towards the final environmental impact statement. And then please note, for these Link projects in planning, these funds have already been approved by the board, and we are highlighting what is to be spent next year. This work is needed to keep projects shovel-ready, and these budgets do not have an impact on agency affordability. Next, STRIDE system expansion projects represent 20%, made up of I-405 BRT, SR-522 BRT, and the BRT maintenance projects, which are all in construction. And then lastly, Sounder is 3%, with the largest 2026 project expenditure being the Sumner, Kent, and Auburn parking and access improvements projects, spending $67 million in 2026, and which would see Sumner opening to the public next year and substantial completion of Kent and Auburn. Next slide, please. So briefly, this slide displays trends in annual system expansion project expenditures by mode from 2023 to 2026. Visually here, you can see the decrease for link expenditures as we complete link projects in construction, while link projects in planning make up a larger share of this budget. You'll also see a large ramp up in stride as the program enters heavy construction. Next slide, please. So lastly, I will speak to our transit improvement plan. So this slide walks through changes from the 2025 adopted transit improvement plan to the proposed 26 transit improvement plan. So as a reminder, this TIP includes the lifetime authorized allocations or multi-year budgets for all active projects. So in total, the 2025 TIP plus board approved actions through the end of September is $26.5 billion. So there is a $318 million increase included in the 2026 proposed TIP. The vast majority of this is increases to service delivery projects and programs with the intent of fully funding some of the asset-based programs, specifically the ERP EAMS project, the Downtown Seattle Transit Tunnel Modernization Program, and the Vertical Transportation Program. Additionally, there is a $349 million decrease for the closeout of projects that have been completed. This includes closeout of 2 system expansion projects, the First Hill Streetcar and Puyallup Station access improvements. And so now I'll turn it back over to Ryan to go over next steps.
Thank you, Stephanie. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Before we close on next steps, just a few things to consider. As you've seen here today, we've always assessed the affordability of the proposed budget and TIP on our agency's financial resources, and this year is no different. While the enterprise initiative needs to execute on its mission, we also need to continue moving the agency forward, improving our system and providing a high quality level of service to the region. We're monitoring our resources on an ongoing basis and optimizing our cash position to ensure financial sustainability. The substantial growth with completing multiple mega projects in the last few years has vastly increased our revenue service hours, as you've seen, and the increase in operating dollars and system investments we're continuing to make. Lastly, some of the major SD3 link extensions mentioned earlier in this presentation will have milestones they will be bringing forward to the board next year, and lifetime authorizations will be needed to continue progress on those as the enterprise initiative is actioned upon. Next slide, please. So here we are on October 23rd, giving an overview of the budget. Earlier today, you heard the property tax levy and approved that resolution. In November, we will begin going to each committee, and we will be looking for the board to approve our proposed budget and TIP on November 20th. Next slide, please. That concludes the presentation. Happy to answer any questions board members may have.
Thank you. Excellent presentation. I forgot to mention to board members and the public, there will be a quiz. It requires an 80% pass in order to leave today. So thank you. Member Millo?
Thank you, Chair. Glad you're kidding about the quiz, I think. Very good job, especially visually helping us consume a lot of important information. I know we're going to have a lot of time in committees, as we all don't serve on all those committees. I have one clarifying question, and sorry if I've missed it over the past few months. I heard on slide 13 in the operations budget, we have planned for increasing frequency on the 1 line to 4-minute headways only during peak time. So question is that only during peak time? And is the plan to be able to sustain that level of frequency? This is not just a 2026 thing for World Cup. This will be able to sustain that level of frequency after next fiscal year?
Yes, the increase in frequency to the 4-minute headways will happen as we tie in the Cross Lake connection to the 1 line, and that will be sustained.
That is fantastic. Thank you.
Other questions? Yes, Board Member Roscoe.
Thank you, Chair. I want just a brief description of what goes into Tacoma Link's expenditure for 2026.
So some notes I have are that there Annual budget for 2026 is $74 million. 2026 activities include advancing to preliminary engineering phase 3 and progressing design from 10% to 30% toward the final environmental impact statement.
Is this TDLE or the T line?
Oh, that was TDLE.
Sorry, yeah.
I can
Just
also
the
speak to
T-line.
Hilltop. Sure. So as Hilltop is open, they're working on closeout work, and this includes legal support for the T100 claim, City of Tacoma support resolution, and spare OCS polls.
Overhead can't, okay, thank you.
Sorry, yes, OCS stands for Overhead Catenary System.
Right, further questions? All right, more to come on this, and we'll be back. Thank you so much. And our last update is on the long-range financial plan, and I'll ask Huey Newsome, our Chief Financial Officer, to begin the presentation and also to introduce any additional speakers.
Thank you very much, Chair Summers, and to the rest of the board. Today, I have with me Executive Director Alex Krieg, who is really the point person for the Enterprise Initiative. He and I will give you an update on the long-range financial plan. We can go to the next slide, please. And so it's by no accident that we come right after the budget and tip presentation. Typically, what happens every year, staff will prepare a proposed budget and tip that is approved by you, the board, through the dates that Executive Director Ron Fisher just walked through. We also present an update and a summary of the update, the long-range financial plan, which I'm doing today. Now, one thing I will say here is that it's by no accident that Alex Krieg is with me, because we are looking at these things jointly. The long-range financial plan is a status report of what our financials look like throughout our planning horizon. But the Enterprise Initiative is an update, is an initiative to address the affordability gap that Alex Krieg now will walk you through in the next slide. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Huey. So we've been engaging the board on cost pressures and the need and purpose for the Enterprise Initiative since your board retreat in late May. At the August board meeting, we were better able to quantify some of these pressures, and the information we presented in August is shown in the bullets on this slide. Overall, the cumulative impact is an approximately 20 to 25% increase over the 2024 long-range financial plan, and reflects challenges related to our capital program, our ability to deliver reliable, high-quality service, and on the finance side, from lower revenues and higher financing costs. Today's briefing is our required annual update of the agency's long-range finance plan. It is generally consistent with the information we shared in August, with some key differences. First, we report specific values in the finance plan, and so the ranges reported in August necessarily go away. Nevertheless, the capital cost estimates reported continue to represent figures before any cost savings opportunities are applied. Second, and in addition to updated and more positive revenue and macroeconomic forecasts and the content of the 2026 budget and tip, the long-range financial plan also includes an initial wave of revenue enhancements that do improve the agency's financial capacity somewhat, and which Huey will describe momentarily. And as I turn this presentation back to Huey, I will stress that the work of the agency over the next several months will be to meet this affordability challenge head-on and comprehensively through the Enterprise Initiative. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Alex. So as Alex just walked us through the ranges that were presented back in August when we really kicked off the Enterprise Initiative, I'm now here to give you a more focused version of the update of the long-range financial plan itself. Again, we are summarizing the update that is being done in the fall. When we do the long-range financial plan itself, we have to move from ranges, from what we presented to you in August, to discrete numbers. That is how we look at the long-range financial plan. And on top of that, as Alex alluded to earlier, since August, we have an improvement of about 4 billion. That's on the sources or the revenues and financing capacity side. But the $34.5 billion gap that we currently have after applying that $4 billion improvement, it's very important to understand and note that we still have $51 billion in funding for pre-baseline expansion and extension investments that are required for ST3. So I think it's very important for us to note that there is that funding that is still available, and we still can fully fund our state of good repair costs as it exists in our current long-range financial plan. Next slide, please. And so since August, on the capital side of the long-range financial plan, we have seen an increase. When we presented back in August, we had a $27 billion increase versus where we were in the fall of 2024. Since August, we've seen an increase of 0.5 billion, and right now we're at 28 billion versus where we were a year ago. This is driven by the gap. The difference between August is now is driven by the changes in our construction cost index. Every year we apply index factors for inflation, for construction, for consumer price, or your general inflation dollars. The 0.5 billion is due to the construction cost index change, and that brings us from 27 billion to 28 billion versus fall of 24. Next slide, please. But on the service delivery side, we've seen no real changes since what we updated you all on back in August. So again, if you look at the $5 billion increase that we shared with you versus fall of 24, is $1 billion in operating expenses versus fall of 24, $2 billion in projected resiliency state of good repair costs, and then another $2 billion in projected cost increases for our Series 3 LRVs, which is really your vehicle purchases for your light rail system, for the Link system. Next slide, please. And so again, just to kind of ground us, when we think about affordability, we look at affordability across the system around two key parameters. Number one, we have to make sure that we are able to pay for expenditures by issuing debt and keeping debt below our legal debt capacity. And our debt capacity is 1.5% of the assessed value of the real property in the Sound Transit taxing district. So that is our first key parameter. The second parameter for affordability is making sure that the service on the debt is monitored by net debt service coverage ratio policy, which basically says that we cannot, our debt service costs must be we must be able to cover our debt service costs 1.5 times with our revenue after our operating expenditures are extracted from our revenues. So those policies dictate whether or not we have an affordable plan. If our debt exceeds these limits, then in theory, the plan is unaffordable. Next slide, please. And so as Alex alluded to a little earlier, we have begun to apply certain strategies to address the gap in the long-range financial plan through the enterprise initiative. This first round, if you will, that $4 billion, $2 billion of that $4 billion includes adjustments to our planning assumptions. So our first set of strategies that we're applying on the finance side or the sources side of the long-range financial plan, that's reflected in the long-range financial plan for this fall. Subsequent activities will include board actions, seeking additional revenues through either grants or looking at partnerships with other governmental entities or private entities, and partnerships even outside of those parameters on the financing side as well. But for today, we're looking at the impact of adjusting our planning assumptions, what that means to our long-range financial plan. Next slide, please. And so here is a summary. I won't go through the backup of each of these. I will say that in your packages, there are specific sets of evidences that we've gone through or research that we've gone through to kind of show our homework, if you will, around why it is that we feel comfortable with the changing of these planning assumptions. Again, This first set of actions, and you see it with these last 5 rows, these first 5 actions, if you will, are our revisiting of these planning assumptions that are built into the long-range financial plan. The borrowing rate assumption, how much it's going to cost us to service our debt over the timeline of the plan. Issuing cost assumption, how much money does it cost for us to actually issue debt? Investment income, how much money do we make on the surplus that we have? We just talked a little bit about investment income being north of $200 million in the budget for 2026. Clean fuel standard revenue. There's revenue that comes in through the Clean Fuel Standard program at the state of Washington. And finally, property tax revenue. How much money do we get, or how much of our levy do we assume we actually collect through property tax collections? So those planning assumptions, the details behind the numbers that you see in front of you are part of your packages. So I will not go through that in detail, but I will, that's summarized here to the tune of about $2 billion of enhancements to our long-range financial plan on the revenue and financing capacity side. But on top of that, I also want to remind board members that we've also increased our sales tax forecast by $2 billion as well. Every year we look at macroeconomic indicators, sales tax forecasts, property tax values. As an example, for this cycle, we're adding $2 billion to the revenue side of the long-range financial plan because we have forecasted the impact of the changes to our sales tax forecast through ESSB 55814, which is the enhancement to the sales tax revenue through the increase of the ability to tax for professional services. So that is also incorporated into the the $4 billion that you see here summarized on this table. So with that, I will go to the next slide and also walk you through chronologically, as you see, that impact of that $2 billion really hits in 2033. So we can afford our expenditures up till then, but then after that, we start to are not able to afford the gold colored expenditures that you see on your slide. Next slide, please. So I'll now hand it over to Alex to walk us through the next steps.
Thank you, Huey. And note that the previous graphic really visually depicts the problem we're trying to solve, and that we are doing so across those distinct work streams within the enterprise initiative, with some initial positive results in the form of these financial enhancements. This final slide summarizes the deliverables identified in the board's motion from August, which also established principles to guide this work. Ultimately, the enterprise initiative will ensure that our next formal update to the long-range financial plan is balanced and affordable, and incorporates work already underway across the agency to reduce costs, update our planning assumptions, and confirm our ability to meet the objectives of the ST3 system plan while delivering safe, reliable service, all within our available financial capacity. There's still a lot of work to do at the staff level, with the board through committees, and with the full board to bring all of these elements together. And so we appreciate your time, energy, and contributions to help us get there. The next slide concludes the presentation, and Huey and I are ready to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Board Member Roscoe.
Thank you, Chair. On slide 4, you've indicated and you've said in the past that State of Good Repair is fully funded.
Yes.
Is that the full build out of ST3 or the current system as it stands today?
The way that, if you go back to slide number, I think it's slide number 9, that shows the graph of the expenditures.
Right.
State of Good Repair is primary. It is a priority expenditure that's assumed in that graph. So what happens is, because State of Good Repair has to come first by policy, what's left over in the gold are the expenditures for the construction of ST3.
Okay, so in 2046, there's an assumption ST3 has been fully built out.
Correct.
And the state of good repair portion of the budget is in the blue area.
That will be correct. That's correct.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Chair
Yes,
Strauss.
Strauss.
Thank you, Huey. Thank you, Alex. I have so many questions that I'm going to wait until Monday when we meet. I don't want to occupy everyone's shared time right now. And if there are questions that I think need to be asked and answered on the record, I'll follow up with the next time you're here. But I just wanted to state I've got so many questions. I'm going to wait and use my own time and not use yours.
Bless you.
We will arrive early.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Yeah, again, more to come.
Thank you.
Evolving. Okay, so that's the end of our presentations. The board will now go into executive session to discuss litigation or potential litigation to which the agency is or likely to become a party, and our general counsel is here to tell us the specific RCW that authorizes this executive session. Desmond.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the executive session is authorized by RCW 423110, subsection 1I, triple I, to discuss the legal risk of a proposed action or course of action where a public discussion would likely result in adverse legal and financial consequences to the agency.
Thank you. So we're expecting the executive session to last 30 minutes. The executive session will be held in another virtual meeting. So board members that are remote have received a link to that meeting in a separate email. And board members present here, where are we going, guys? Over there. Concourse room. Board members will exit this meeting to participate in the executive session. Then we will return to this Zoom event and in person to resume the meeting when the full executive session is over. And I do not believe that there's any action, no further business after that. Thank you.
The board has extended their executive session by 11 minutes. The board has extended its executive session by 11 minutes. The new estimated resumption time of the meeting is 3:45 p.m. The board is expected to return at 3:45 p.m. Board has extended their executive session by a further 10 minutes. The board has extended their executive session by a further 10 minutes. The new estimated resumption time of the public meeting is 3:55 p.m. Again, the board is expected to reconvene at 3:55 p.m.
And Chair Summers, the time for executive session is over, so we are now able to resume the meeting.
All right, I'll reconvene a meeting of the board. Is there any other business to come before the board today? Hearing none, the next meeting of the Board of Directors will be at the retreat, which is taking place on Thursday, November 13th, 2025, from 2 o'clock to 5 p.m. That meeting will be held in rooms 121 and 123 of the King County Chinook Building at 401 Fifth Avenue in Seattle. And after the retreat, our next regular Board of Directors meeting will take place on November 20th, 2025, from 1:30 to 4 p.m. The meeting will take place in the Ruth Fisher Boardroom as well as via Zoom. The link to join the virtual meeting will be provided on the Sound Transit website and on the meeting agenda. So we are adjourned. All right.